Hi everyone. I'm going to be doing some yard work back here. It is a Sunday evening. I'm going to start by taking off all of these protective cages. I need to have these protective cages because there are rats, I believe, living up in these cypress trees. And I think there are rats in the neighbor's yard, frankly, as well. So I've had to take the extraordinary measure to make these cages. And I cover up most of the plants, not all of them. So whenever I need to go in and do some harvesting or planting, amending soil, things like that, I have to take off the cages to get to the plants. So it is a bit of a hassle, but got to do what you got to do. So the plan for today is to take out some old plants. Those broccoli over there need to be removed, and I need to add some mulch to these potatoes here. It's a really nice evening here in Southern California. We had these nice storms come through this past week, so got a nice watering from those rains. Okay. You can see the difference as I'm taking off these cages, what the garden looks like. Looks so much nicer without these cages. I've referred to these cages as making the garden look like a penitentiary. It's a bit challenging with some of these vegetables to protect. There's some vegetables I frankly can't grow, like for example, peas. Last year I had a nice trellis of peas that were growing really well, and there was really no way to protect them other than maybe individually bag each of the peas, but sure enough, the rats got to them. So I got to be selective about the plants that I grow. All right, so let's go ahead and remove these broccoli plants. I actually have some broccoli that can be harvested. These are really small broccoli shoots. So I'm going to pick these, throw these into a salad. These did not develop as I had hoped. I was hoping that they would get bigger, but they just never really got big. I know these shoots generally are going to be on the smaller side, but still, it was worth a try. I mean, this was actually the second time I've grown these, and I'd say this time around it was better. It did produce better. This broccoli is called artwork, and the way you harvest this is after the initial crown of the broccoli is removed, then all of these side shoots develop, giving you these small little broccolini. So in this bucket right here, I have all my vegetable gardening tools, so I don't have to go in and out of the shed to get the tools that I need. So if you've never been to my channel, thank you for coming. I post a lot of videos about vegetable container gardening, and there are a lot of advantages to gardening in containers. I'll be doing a video on that here in the coming weeks. But we used to actually, this area behind me had a raised bed, and we've been doing raised beds for years, even before we had this house. At our other house, we also had raised beds, and so a couple of years ago, I converted to entirely containers, and we couldn't be happier. This is so much better. I mean, like one advantage here, for example, is I can sit on a gardening stool and work on this pot. I don't have to get low to the ground for a in-ground garden, or have to deal with a raised bed. And don't get me wrong, raised beds I think are a good alternative, but we've just chosen to go in a different direction, and we couldn't be happier with these containers. So I know you can't see this, but I've removed the mulch from this pot. I have mulch on most of my pots, and the reason for that is to keep the soil moist, keep it insulated, especially in the wintertime. And we're in zone 10B, so it really never gets that cold here. I mean, our coldest days and evenings may get into the upper 30s. That's as cold as we'll ever get. So mulching helps to keep the moisture in, and keep the pots from drying out. That's really the main thing. Okay, let's see, where's my trash? Here. Okay. I'm going to add some compost and leaf mold, as well as an organic fertilizer, into this pot, just to reintroduce some macro and micronutrients. Okay, so that one's out. Now I reuse all of this mulch, so this mulch has probably been in half a dozen pots over the past year or two. And what's really cool about this mulch is it has worms in it because of previous pots that the mulch has been in. And so it's like, even though these pots are on concrete, and those are on pea gravel back here, but even though these are on concrete, there are worms in these pots. It kind of seems counterintuitive, right? Since there's no soil below these pots, but because of the mulch and the reintroduction of these, the mulch into these pots, the worms get in. And so the soil is pretty fertile, especially after every time I remove a plant. I amend it with the leaf mold compost and fertilizer. And I try to stay organic, so the fertilizer is not a chemical fertilizer. It's an organic OMRI listed fertilizer. And of course, the leaf mold is homemade, so that's organic, and as well as the compost. I use a bag compost. I don't make my own compost with the exception of the leaf mold. So I just don't have the space here in my backyard to have a compost system. Okay, so those plants are out, and I am going to, let's see, I think I'm going to remove this one as well. If you're joining us, thank you for watching this live stream. My name is Ryan, and I am in the backyard working on our vegetable garden, removing some old and tired plants and preparing the soil for the next plants. Still growing these cool season vegetables. This is a pak choi. I've been cutting off the leaves, but it looks like it's getting a little bit tired. So I'm going to remove it and harvest the whole thing. Okay. Let's see. Trash. So this evening I am removing some old plants and amending the soil. But let's see, I've got those two broccoli out. I have this pak choi out. I think that's about it with the removal of plants. Let me think. Yeah, I think we're good. I'll just next step here will be to amend the soil. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and dump this out. Oh, hey, Karen. I see. Thank you for joining. Got a couple people watching. Thanks, guys. Let me zoom in just a little bit. Yeah, by the way, Karen, if you're still there, can you do a sound check? Can you hear me okay? Let's see. All right, so we've got the compost and I've got the fertilizer in my bucket. I am going to go and get some leaf mold now from the side. Okay, let's go use this. So I just went to the my leaf mold bin and take a look at this just beautiful leaf mold. There's a lot of worms in here, like these right here. This is so beneficial as a soil conditioner. I actually have a video on how to make leaf mold, so you can check that out. I'm going to use this as an amendment to the pots. Okay, so I'm going to add a scoop of leaf mold as an amendment into this pot. As I put this in there, I can just see all of these worms. Just so nice. Add some compost. It's a bag compost. And some of this Dr. Earth organic all-purpose fertilizer. This pot will get a little hit of some macronutrients, that is NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So this is how I amend my pots after I remove plants. I just add this. That's just really simple. Nothing, too complex. Let's see, where's my bucket? And I just gently till this in. Okay. Now, after I've done that, I will put the mulch back in. So, what did I do with my bucket of mulch? Just had it here. Oh, here it is. So I'm not going to plant into this pot right away. I'm going to let it lay fallow for a little bit of time before I replant in here. So I want to cover it up with this mulch, because if I don't do that, the top will kind of it'll dry, get crusted over. So I want to keep that soil nice and moist. The winds also will dry out this soil. So, okay, so that one is ready to go. Let's move over to these other ones over here. It's really nice working with these containers because you don't have to, go, kneel all the way down to the ground to work on your plants. You can just bring a little gardening stool and work at this level, which is so much nicer. So again, to this pot, I'm going to add a couple scoops of this lovely leaf mold and some compost. Okay. And a couple of tablespoons of this organic fertilizer. So as I'm placing all of these ingredients into the pot to amend the soil, I just see all of these there's all this worm activity. And that's just from the leaf mold. Okay, so I'm just tilling that into the top, 2 to 3 inches. And then I'm going to cover it up with some mulch. Okay, and one more to go. Okay, once again, let's add this leaf mold. And compost. So for those of you who may wonder, like, why am I doing this? Well, when you grow vegetables, those vegetables are very fast growing, and you're going to be planting and harvesting the vegetables in anywhere from 2 months to maybe 5 or 6 months, and they do deplete to some degree the macro and micronutrients in the soil. And so by adding the organic fertilizer, we're reintroducing some nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. The leaf mold and the compost are a nice soil conditioner to keep the soil nice and fertile. And it also helps to retain moisture. And again, the last thing I'll do here is to place the last of this mulch in here, spread it around, and that's going to keep that soil from drying out. Okay, so these are amended. Let me set this stuff aside here. All right. See, I have some plants over here that I want to return. So this is a beautiful pot of carrots. And here is a pot of spinach. That goes over here. This is a pot of radishes. That goes right here. Here's a beautiful pot of pak choi and some green onions. So let's go ahead and return these. You'll notice how all of these pots are like on that side of the garden. And the reason for that is because of the sun. So this part of the garden is shaded because of the position of the sun. Only this side of the garden gets light. And as the days get longer, I'll slowly start to move those pots that are on the concrete back over to the pea gravel area as the sun comes more overhead in the spring and summer. All right. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is fill these pots of potatoes with more mulch. Okay, so I have 4 grow bags back here of potatoes. About a year ago, I started playing with this system of growing potatoes called the Ruth Stout method of growing potatoes. And basically what it is growing potatoes and adding, or growing, it could be anything, potatoes or any other vegetable, but adding rotted hay to the top of the seed potatoes. And as the foliage leaves out, you just add more hay. Well, I'm using not hay, but this mulch I use in all of my containers. It's a shredded cedar mulch, and it works really great. So I'm looking into this pot right now, and all of these plants are above the top of the grow bag. So I am going to add mulch to the top of the grow bag. So I have 2 pots here to my right that I filled up already because I started those potatoes earlier. This pot here, these 2 pots of, or I should say grow bags of potatoes, I started later. So they're a little behind the first 2 grow bags. And what's really nice about this system of growing potatoes is that it's not really messy. Like if you were to backfill with these with soil, it's a little, you're just using soil as opposed you're using soil. And in this case, you're using mulch. And the mulch is just so much easier to work with. You don't need a trowel. You just reach down and grab it and place it in with your hand. And then when it's time to harvest, it's also very easy. You basically dump the whole grow bag out and sift through the mulch, and then you get to reuse the mulch and harvest the potatoes. I'm relatively new to growing potatoes. I've grown sweet potatoes for a long time, but I saw this method on Octavia's channel, Be Betta Garden, and she was really helpful in answering a couple of my questions, and I followed some of her videos. Okay, so that one is filled up, and that one's ready to go. And I have to fill up this last one. So yeah, all these plants are looking really great. Now, when it comes to potatoes, there are two different types. There are determinate and indeterminate, just like tomatoes. The determinate type basically are a clumping form. The potatoes form at the soil level. And speaking of soil level, the grow bags were filled with I'd say about 10 inches of potting soil from the bottom, and I put the seed potatoes on top. And as they sprouted, I just added this mulch. The indeterminate type of potatoes, they will grow along the stem as the plant grows out. These potatoes I'm growing are determinate, so they're basically going to be forming clumps near the soil level. They don't necessarily grow, all along the stem. So, all right. So I have the mulch all the way to the top of the grow bag. So these are good to go. Okay. So that mulch that I just put in there is mulch that I've been using for a couple of years. I just reuse the mulch, and it's great because there are worms in it from previous containers that the mulch was used in the past. Okay. All right, so we've got that done. Yeah, I think everything is done here. Just got to do some cleanup. Let's take a look at the picture. I think it might be a little dark. Oh, doesn't look too bad. With these containers, you can put them in any configuration you want. I have them fairly close together. That's why it's a little tight in here. But based on your the size of your garden, you could have as few as a couple of pots to more pots if you have a little more motivation, a little more space. And this is about as many pots as I would like to have. I think I've kind of reached the limit. And this provides us with, most of the vegetables that we need. Not that we are, living off of our vegetables, but we are able to grow seasonal vegetables, which is really nice. And it's just manageable. It's really manageable. It's really a nice sized vegetable garden. After I do a little tidying up here, I'm going to water and then return the cages onto the plants. All right. Okay, we're going to finish up by doing a little bit of watering. Now, those pots that I turn on this light, those pots that I amended, I will water those as well because there is that life in the soil from the earthworms in particular that need that water. I do all hand watering back here. And, a lot of people would just set up a drip system, but I just find by hand watering, you're more attentive to your vegetables. You see them on either a daily, like in the summertime, or, uh, you know, 2 or 3 times a week when it's fall and winter when it needs less water. But you actually see your plants on a regular basis. And I think it's really important to make sure that you are attending to their needs. I water back here in the winter time maybe twice a week. Sometimes it might be once a week if it's raining. Um, Last year and the year before, when we had some record rains in Southern California, there were weeks I didn't water at all. There might be multiple weeks when the rain took care of that. I try to capture as much of the rainwater as possible. I have a rain barrel here, and I have a rain barrel on the other side of the house. In fact, I just used some of that rainwater to wet down my leaf mold on the side of the house. I'm always careful not to overwater these potatoes because the last thing I want is to overwater these and have those potatoes rot. But since these are in grow bags and there are drain holes down there, it's really hard to overwater. But if you water them multiple times and it gets saturated too much, it can rot. So back here I have two more pots that I amended last week. And so I want to make sure that we keep those wet. In this back table I have some parsley and thyme. Also have some mint, all of which we use in our cooking. Having a small garden like this is essentially a kitchen garden. We can come back here and harvest a lot of the vegetables or herbs that we need. But like I said, it doesn't provide us with everything that we need because we still have to go to the market or the farmer's market to get the vegetables that we need for our meal preparation. I have a couple of big 20 um, gallon pots back here, and this one I'm watering right now has daikon radishes in it. So I want to make sure I water this one deep because daikon radish is pretty long, and you want to make sure that those tap roots at the bottom can get water. And these plants are looking really good. I think I can see some of the tops of these daikon. They're looking good. I imagine these will be ready in a week or two. Another pot over here. This is another pot of daikon. It's weird because this pot of daikon I harvested first, but they're smaller than the second pot that I sowed about a month later. It's still kind of a head scratcher. I imagine it had something to do with the temperature when I sowed those seeds. Okay, watering these nice and deep. And this pot here has carrots in it, so I'm going to water this one deep as well. I'm growing these carrots in succession, just like I'm growing the daikon radishes in succession. And so what that means is, you start either by sowing or transplanting seedlings into a pot, and then sometime later you do another planting. You might do that 2 or 3 or more times, and by doing that, you have that vegetable available for many, many weeks. Because as the first pot is being harvested, the second and third pots are growing. Let me get this light turned on over here. I'm also doing it with, let's see, with beets over here. We've got 3 pots of beets. They're growing in succession. If you are interested in vegetable gardening and maybe you found it to be a little bit too much work, or you don't have the time or you don't have the space, I have to say that container gardening is really a solution that you may consider because you can start really small with one pot. In fact, I just posted a video on that. You can start with one pot, you can have 2, 3, you can have as many or as few pots as you want, and that would all be based on your situation. I've seen uh, gardeners with many more pots than I have right here, but I find this is just the right amount for us because we have other interests besides gardening, and I don't want to get too consumed with gardening. We love it, but we have to make sure that we have balance with the other things that we do in our life. Okay, so back over here, I am watering those pots that I had mended. If you didn't see that part of the live video, I took out a couple of broccoli plants back here, and I amended the soil with a leaf mold and compost, as well as an organic fertilizer. These two plants right here are kale, and although they don't look like much right now, they will leaf out, and they've been really productive this winter. We've harvested kale from those plants multiple times over the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks. Okay, we're finishing up over here. Water this pot, and I think we're just about done. It's getting dark, and it's getting close to dinner time. Okay. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and if you're watching the video after it's been posted, I hope you enjoy the video. All right, everybody, take care. Bye bye.